Hello, 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 and thank you for checking out the Luttrell Show for service and hospitality entrepreneurs. I'm Jason Luttrell, and welcome to my closet on Thursday, February 25th. The headlines are, Sommeliers are more essential than ever. DISCUS is getting into the education business. Classic New York Post editorial on minimum wage. And some more PPP specifics from Bloomberg. And catering and events are opening up in New York on March 15th, as well as another bonus story from Fast Company. All right, so the first story is why sommeliers are more essential than ever. And this comes to us from SevenFifty. I was really excited about this article because I felt like this for a long time. Sommeliers, the story reads that sommeliers were typically the first to be cut from a shift pre-pandemic, and in more recent months, they've been the first to be furloughed and last rehired. This doesn't really make sense from a financial standpoint. So the story continues that operators believe that because sommeliers tend to earn higher salaries than other employees, cutting them from payroll will improve profit by reducing labor costs. While this may seem intuitive, the opposite is actually true. Capable sommeliers improve the financial position of a restaurant even if they don't touch every table. This misconception stems from the misunderstandings of a sommelier's true value. I think it's really important to note that this story was written by a sommelier, but that doesn't mean that it's not true. So the story continues that eliminating the sommelier role can decimate a restaurant's gross profit potential, since highly skilled sommeliers pay back their labor cost 10 to 100-fold on every shift. Quote, "We make you money in ways you don't even know," says Andy Myers, who's a master sommelier director of Jose Andres' Think Food Group. The story continues to go into some pretty specific math, and I think it's worth noting because what we don't understand when we talk about cutting high cost employees is what their actual revenue generation is. So they don't have to think about the bottle cost is the bottle cost, and it stops there. There's no labor involved. There's no materials cost. That's just it. And then you pay somebody to sell it. So here's some math from the story. So the average wine bottle is priced at 250 to 350% of cost, even more for wines by the glass. The result is 60 to 80% gross profit on every bottle sold. Further, wine is a high gross revenue product, often starting at $40 per bottle, the same price as an expensive entree, and stretching to thousands of dollars per bottle. Having a specialist on staff to maximize sales of these high grossing products is therefore a smart investment that results in more dollars in the bank. So if you're a restaurant owner, or if you're a bar owner, and you have a sommelier on staff, definitely check out this article. The point is that they justify the cost of their labor oftentimes by multiples of 10. So check out this article. The next story is new online academy will teach you how to get into the booze business. So DISCUS, and this comes from Forbes. Forbes is talking about, Forbes sat down with somebody from DISCUS and talking about the DISCUS Academy. And they're talking about how the courses that they're going to be offering are a brief survey of upcoming courses revealing a bunch of important elements for certain types of business owners or people who want to get into a certain type of business. So this wouldn't necessarily be for operators, more so for independent distillers. So they're going to talk about fire protection best practices, foundation on the 3-tier system, developing and understanding financial statements and cash flow. But it's first of its kind service for the industry, and it comes from a time when craft distilleries were facing unprecedented challenges. The story continues to go to read that with DISCUS Academy, they're veering in a more public-facing direction, actively courting prospective entrepreneurs into the sector. Now, DISCUS is, if you don't know what DISCUS is, it's basically the lobbying arm of the spirits industry. So I think they have an office on K Street. I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong on that, but they are effectively a lobby, and when the Diageos, the Bacardis, the William Grants want to make some sort of a legislation or fight something, they call DISCUS, and among other lobbyists. So all right, the next story reads, okay, so this is from the New York Post, and if you've read the New York Post at all, it's definitely a right-leaning organization. As a counterpoint to most of the left-wing media from left of center media in New York. So they wrote up this fiery headline that reads, "Democrats' new restaurant killer in quote relief bill." So they're saying that the Democrats are basically writing this bill that's probably not only self-serving, but also it's also not good for the actual employees, which I don't think they really care about. But anyway, so the story reads, buried in Democrats' relief bill is a poison pill for restaurants and their servers already struggling thanks to the pandemic and lockdowns, and then to the tipped minimum wage. As it works now, eateries now pay servers around $5 an hour less than the regular minimum wage because they earn more than that in their tips. That's not always true. If they don't, the boss is legally obliged to make up the difference. So it's a no-lose provision for workers who generally make far more than the minimum wage as a result. Also not true, guys. So there's a couple factual errors in this. If you are a tipped employee, that does not necessarily mean you're going to earn a tipped minimum, the actual minimum wage. But it is true that in New York, at least, the employer is required to make up the difference. But that's a kind of a shady underworld that requires trust and like weird stuff that is often not present when that conversation exists. So the story continues to bash Democrats, saying that Democrats pretending to end tips and imposing a national minimum $15 minimum wage, which is on Joe Biden's desk right now, will help low-end workers. In fact, it will kill a ton of jobs, especially in low cost of living areas. I think what they mean by that is that employers are going to be maximizing their labor by having less people work more hours and lowering their actual overall labor cost. I don't think that's the case, but we'll see what actually happens. The next story says, the next story talks about the PPP. Bloomberg breaks it down pretty well. I really like the way they did this, actually, how they talked about what it used to be, what it is now, and give some pretty good actionable advice, including, and I'll quote the article here. They put some context in over the 2021 PPP, the program relaunched on January 11th, drawing on $284 billion set aside for it in the $900 billion pandemic relief package. The SBA has approved our 1.9 million PPP loans worth nearly $140 billion so far this year, according to this February 21st report. So the PPP is scheduled to end on March 31st. And the program will expect it to be extended if money is left over. So that's what they're anticipating. The details are the first-time borrowers apply for so-called first draw loans. Businesses with 500 or fewer employees can borrow up to 2.5 times their average monthly payroll costs, up to $10 million. The self-employed will follow the forthcoming gross income calculation described above. Now, the interest rate is 1% and the term is 5 years. So generally a favorable loan if it's not forgiven. The story continues that previous borrowers apply for second draw loans. Enterprises with 300 or fewer employees can borrow up to 2.5 times their average monthly payroll cost, up to $2 million. I mean, you kind of have to be a math whiz to understand this. At least I don't understand this. I would hire somebody like a bookkeeper, or I would hire somebody like an accountant to help me understand this. But the truth is that it's so brand new that that nobody's really an expert in this, including the banks that are processing these loans. So I was been scanning Babar, which is a Brooklyn area bar and restaurant owners group. And there's lots of confusion there. In fact, I quoted somebody as saying, you definitely do not need to be forgiven for the first to apply for the second draw loan. In fact, there are not any requirements that you must apply for forgiveness for either round. So there's a little confusion and ambiguity around what happens with the first loan and if that needs to be forgiven. My understanding is that the first loan doesn't have to be forgiven to get to the second loan. Okay, so here's something from that was given by a newsletter alert from the New York City Hospitality Alliance last night. It says that in-person and catered events requirements are released. So here are the specifics from, I forget which agency it is, from the esd.ny.gov. I'm not sure which agency that is. But events are permitted starting March 15th, 2021, such as wedding receptions, celebrations, and similar private venue events, such as meetings and conferences. But it's not like what it used to be, though. So occupancy must be limited to lesser of 50% for a particular area, as set by the C of O, or 150 people, whichever is greater. And this does not include the staff members or event production staff. So events have to stop at midnight as well. So they can't go from 12 a.m. to 5 a.m. And that is until further notice. And also, responsible parties must require and ensure all the attendees have received a negative diagnostic test result for COVID-19. And employees and event staff must also be tested for COVID-19 through a diagnostic test prior to events. Now, that's a little problematic because in one of the earlier stories this week, we talked about how rapid testing is available in 30 minutes, but it also costs $30. So depending on where you're at in the world, that may be prohibitively expensive. And it may be difficult for some people to do that, especially multiple times. So I'm not sure if that's per shift, but Presumably it is, and that could get very expensive very quickly. So there's going to be some contact information if you have some questions about that in the show notes. So the last story is from Fast Company. And it's giving us scientific proof that we're going to need to party after COVID-19. No doubt and no shit. We get that. So Mark talks about how a survey from Oktoberfest linked life satisfaction with a shared public experience full of rituals like the songs and toasts, and create a strong life satisfaction. And we've been missing that for the last year or so. So the story reads, first, figure out how to actually create an activity that's less transactional and more interactive. This is how to get people excited about going to your bar again, by the way. Second, build an experience that's differentiated from your normal business with unique and wow-worthy elements, aka something memorable. And finally, get guests to reflect on their experience during or after the event. This too will help them remember it for a long time to come. All right, it's a good story. Check it out on Fast Company. So, all right, so that's the end of our show for today. So for story ideas, comments, errors, and omissions, please send a message to Jason Luttrell on any social media platform or email podcast@jluttrell.com. All articles are property of their original publishers, so please be sure to check out the show notes for links to these source articles. Head to our Facebook group, Service and Hospitality Entrepreneurs, to join this discussion, or search for Jason Luttrell on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and Clubhouse, or subscribe to The Luttrell Show wherever you get your podcasts. I've been Jason Luttrell, and I will see you next time. Read the news. Read the news. Read the news. Read